All right, let's get started. I'm Jeremy Myron. I'm the co-founder and CIO of OnRamp Payments, and I'm talking to you today with my friend and longtime colleague, Gray Taylor, who is Executive Director of Connexus. So we'll talk about Gray in just a minute. We're talking about the future of retail payments. When John Lofstock asked me to talk on this subject, I was Road Ranger's CIO, so I've been a retail CIO retailer for 22 years for a couple different retailers in this space. Shortly after he asked me to talk on this subject, I made the decision to leave Road Ranger after a nice long 20-year stint there and start something in this topic, in payments. So, accepted this opportunity as a retailer. Now I'm a supplier, kind of backdoored my way into pitching you guys today. So, just kidding. We're going to talk about the future of payments with a little bit of a pitch. So I actually we went out and raised venture capital money, and we're building a cardless payment solution. So I'll talk about that in just a moment. Me and my co-founders, I'm the retailer representative. I've got a co-founder, our CEO, who was with Amex, and my other co-founder, our CTO, was with Stripe. So we've got a solid merchant and payments background, solid engineering and kind of next generation, Web 2.0, Web 3.0 payments. My job for the last 3 or 4 months since I've started with OnRamp full time is to imagine the best possible merchant payment product, period. So as a 22-year CIO, payments have been one of the most interesting parts of my job, but also the bane of my existence in many ways. And so, kind of rethinking and exploding what the things are that cause a lot of those problems and those pain points, and then building the best possible solution for merchants. No PCI compliance, none of that kind of stuff, no interchange, a better way to do payments. So jumping right into the subject matter, the future of payments, I'm going to talk about kind of the 101 level side of this, and then when Gray takes over, I think he'll kind of get into 201, 301 level. But the bottom line is the future of payments is frictionless. I think that's maybe the most important point. It's cardless and it's decentralized. It's also highly personal. Frictionless is the opposite of friction. It's a frustrating experience. Frictionless is a frustration-free experience. Friction is a frustration-filled experience. To get more into that, what is frictionless? What is friction? It's counting out change. It's swiping a card. It's the mental context switching that you have to do to recall a PIN or answer the prompts on a retailer PIN pad. Every single one of us probably have customer-activated payment terminals, and every single one of us probably have a different prompt flow and a different set of questions that we're asking the customers. Customers don't like that almost universally. That's friction. Waiting in line. Poorly trained cashiers, the last session talking about the labor shortage and bringing people on board. We struggle more than ever with getting people up to speed with operating our technology. It's often, not the employee's fault. It's complex. These systems are complex, and if it's your first or second day on the job, the customer really doesn't have any patience for that. That's friction. Slow cashiers. Frictionless is, things that aren't that. It's a fast checkout experience. It's minimizing the number of steps that's needed. It's low touch or no touch. Yesterday on our store tours, we went to an Excel Robotics lab store. That was a completely touchless, cashierless experience. I think that there's a spectrum of where frictionless fits for us and different stores of ours, even for those of us who have large chains. Maybe some stores need a no-touch experience. Some stores need some hybrid of the two. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing, but the bottom line is to reduce the steps and reduce the contact points. Frictionless promotes cognitive ease, so it's not having to recall a PIN number. It's not having to go through the prompts on a PIN pad. And the bottom line is frictionless is just a payments process and a checkout process that's integrated within a good all-around customer experience. Why does it matter to us? Why does frictionless matter to us, and how is that relevant to the future of payments? Retail outside of our sector has had a really bad time for like the last 10 to 15 years, as evidenced by your local department store or strip mall, that sort of thing. There's obviously retail still exists, and there's a lot of players that are there that have figured out how to evolve and find their place, but there are plenty who are no longer there, or some that are just clinging to life. We largely haven't faced those challenges. I think that the past 22 years leading tech for a retail chain, I can say with good confidence that this is one of the hardest ways to make money. It's an extremely hard way to make money doing what we do. But from the perspective of building a better customer experience, reducing friction, and embracing the future of payments, I think we've kind of had it easy. We have 20,000-gallon tanks under the ground in our front forecourts filled with combustibles, and our customers need those combustibles, and because of that, and because we have some of the best real estate in the country, maybe we do have the best real estate in the country, our customer base is almost kind of guaranteed, and we can provide the experience that we provide, and as long as we're in a good place and our fuel's priced reasonably, the business is guaranteed. I think as the demand of gasoline comes down, whether it's because of fuel efficiency or because of increased penetration of EV and other zero-emission vehicles and alt fuels, we're going to have to fight a lot harder to maintain our relevance and to retain those customers that we have today. When the customer no longer needs the combustible commodity product that's underneath our forecourt, we've got to provide them with the experiences that they need, and that's frictionless, and that's future payment methods. This chart is from Bloomberg. It was from data and a research study that was done last year. I've seen a lot of different prognostications on what the future of market share looks like with vehicles and EV and future gallonage and things like that. I do put a lot of stock in this study coming from Bloomberg, from a very reliable source. Their studies tend to be more closer to on the mark. And their projection is that the convergence of internal combustion vehicle sales and EVs will happen sometime around 2035. So it's not next year. Combustibles aren't gone in 2030. They aren't gone in 2025. It'll be about 50-50 market share in terms of sales of retail vehicles in about 13 years. So I think that's a much more realistic view on things, especially with the supply chain shortages that we have today and some of the challenges that come with EV. It's not the panacea that it's sometimes made out to be, but it's also not something that we can put our head in the sand and ignore. It's not something that will be irrelevant. It is happening to some extent, and with that transition comes a much more important focus on customer experience for us, as we have to do some of the things that our peers in traditional retail have had to do over the last 15 years to maintain and retain customer relationships. My kind of, just napkin drawing chart of kind of where I think this matters to us and on what timeline it looks like. My feeling, and if I was in your shoes, working on my strategy towards payments and what that looks like and customer experience, I think we've got to be at a point where late this decade, within the next 5 years, so we've got time. You've got time to go back and get to work on this. And I know many of you, if not all of you, are already working on some of these things to some extent. So this isn't new material or new information, but we've got to go back and parse this and process this and then implement and synthesize it into our operations so that we can be ahead of this, true, I think, loss of demand of combustibles that's coming for our industry. So my recommendation in terms of timing would be to take this back, continue to suck in information that you can get from all different sources and places like NACS and conferences like this one and talking to your peers and networking, and then get a plan in place and really start executing and implementing on this in the next few years. So any conversation about payments is really a conversation about checkout. Every dollar that we make is either interfaced with, pay at the pump or a cashier at the register. So when we're talking about payments and convenience retail, we're talking about checkout. I think friction in checkout, whether it's the payments process like we've been talking about, or it's just simply the act of ringing up products and cashiering, is it's a real problem for our industry. I think that where I came from at Road Ranger for the last, probably 10, 15 years or so, we have tried to run almost a pseudo P&L of important metrics that don't really drive the financial outcome of the business directly, and they aren't things that you can necessarily measure with the cash register, but they're things that ultimately impact those business outcomes that we do see measured in the P&L. Things that your P&L don't show you that are impacted by this are the number of customers who drove past the store completely because the lot was too full, which was because of a friction-filled customer experience. How many times have people put product back or didn't grab product or just walked out of the store and didn't get anything when they planned to make an inside purchase? That's not on your P&L, obviously. And just, people that were frustrated and decided not to come back. Those things aren't on the P&L. those slow checkout experiences, it's because probably there are too many steps and the checkout process hasn't been optimized as well as it can be, and because of various friction adding processes like complicated payment card workflows and things like that. So I think it's really important for us to focus on this, like I said, in terms of providing the customer with the experience that they really need in order for us to retain them when things start getting a little bit more competitive. There was a 2021 survey done. I didn't put the source, and I forgot who the source was, but this survey said, so, given that I don't have the source attributed, not sure what market it was done in or that sort of thing, but the bottom line is the outcome was 74% of consumers that were polled about an Amazon Go type checkout experience said that they would like that or they would appreciate that. I do recall that in this survey, some of the audience members weren't familiar with Amazon Go or hadn't been in Amazon Go, so the surveyors explained to them what that experience looked like, and 74% of the people that were polled said, yeah, I'd like that, and 26% said, yeah, I don't know about that, or I wouldn't do that, but 74% is a big number. It's obviously a majority, and that's an important number. This drawing or this picture was released by Amazon in January of this year, where they showed their suburban store concept. It's like a 6,000 square foot building with 3,200 square foot in actual retail space that's not filled with machines and stock and things like that. This concept rendering, they had another drawing that went with it that showed, a line of EV chargers out front. I've talked with people since I've been here. We've talked about this a lot as an industry. Amazon said years ago that they'd have thousands of stores. They don't. They have 30. I think there's a lot of doom and gloom and that sort of thing. But the bottom line reality is they're still chipping away at this. They're still working on it. And obviously this is a big bet and about as frictionless as you can get in a retail experience. So it looks a lot like a convenience store. The real estate that they're looking at is our real estate. It's sites that we would be selecting as convenience retailers when we grow. So I think it's very important for us to pay attention to this, and I think it supports that frictionless need of our consumer. That being said, I think I've heard the Amazon stores cost a couple million to build, just like ours do, but then another couple million to put technology in. It's really difficult to get an ROI on that. They don't report their income from that business in any way where we can extrapolate it. It's obviously because it's not profitable for them at this point. They're still experimenting with a giant technology company budget. So should we be focusing our energies and efforts in these critical next coming years on things like that? Not necessarily. There's a lot of solutions to that. You've got your traditional counter-based self-checkout that you can buy from traditional industry suppliers like NCR, kiosk-based self-checkout. Skip is a great supplier to our industry. They've got app-based self-checkout. There's Smart Basket, which you don't see in convenience retail yet, but it's in other segments. And then, of course, Just Walk Out, like we saw at the Excel Robotics test store yesterday, and like Standard has, who focuses on our industry, who have kind of commoditized that and made it something viable for us as convenience retailers, but it's still a very large capital investment and it requires a certain store design to properly implement and pull off. Bottom line is there's a lot of different solutions. We don't all have to be Amazon. We don't have to have Amazon's budget. And I think it's something that it's really important that we look at. One of the things that we talked about yesterday when we were at the Excel test store was that this isn't for everybody. Obviously, we have different demographics. Some of our demographics would hate it if we made them do this or if we made this a required part of the checkout flow. I think it's important to look for solutions and embrace solutions that give you options and give your customer options. So I think it's something that we need to start testing. It's something that we need to start putting in our stores to some extent, but it's something that we need to blend with what we know about running our stores, which we know better than a lot of the tech companies that are trying to enter this space. Kind of shifting gears from checkout to payments, directly to payments. Again, this is kind of the 101 level. I think we all kind of know these things, but just to kind of recap them and talk about, this is the future of payments that is available to us now. So of course, NFC and tap to pay, physical card with NFC. Most of the major payment card issuers in the last 24 to 36 months have done a mass reissuance of their plastic or their metal cards and dropped an NFC chip in their cards. We all remember that there was RFID 10, 15, 20 years ago with like the Amex Blue card and things like that kind of went away. That technology was leapfrogged, but now it's NFC. And these card issuers have found that it's very profitable to reissue a card that didn't have tap to pay with tap to pay. The average customer ticket and spend and number of taps increases when they put a single customer and replace an account without tap to pay with tap to pay. So they obviously know that. That's important to them, and it justified the investment in doing these really expensive mass card reissuing. So tap to pay is important. We should be there. I think none of us are really happy with traditional interchange levying payment networks. And largely what I'm talking about is traditional interchange levying payment networks. That being said, they're a critical part of our business today, whether we like it or not. And I think taking advantage of their research and what they know and what they're taking advantage of, we should too. So we should enable tap to pay. It should be an important part of your technology footprint today. So that's tap to pay both inside the store as well as at the pump. My feeling is an investment in tap to pay at a pump that you weren't already going to invest money in doesn't necessarily make sense, so I wouldn't go out and proactively retrofit my pump fleet with NFC card readers. But if you're already investing in things like EMV kits and retrofits and new store dispensers and things like that, you should put tap readers on your pumps. And then there's retailer cardless payment. I think this is growing in importance, and I think some of what Gray is going to talk about will touch on this to an extent, but many of us have apps. Some of us who have apps that are payment enabled, and some of us that have apps that are payment enabled have payment options in our payment enabled app that don't ride on traditional interchange levying rails. At Road Ranger, Rovertown powered our app. We just recently rolled that out within the past year, and they are powering our payment platform, and we're working with them to have them power the non-interchange levying retailer proprietary payment option that we're bringing to our customers within our app. That's, I think, really strategic for us. It touches on a couple of different strategic tech topics that aren't really in the scope of what we're talking about today, but it's things like understanding who your customer is and personalizing the customer experience and getting people to identify themselves when they come in your store, which is very closely related to loyalty. Loyalty and payment, I think these days are almost becoming interchangeable. So I think that's really, really something that you should take a look at. And people like Zipline and PDI and Rovertown, and then the MPPAs like P97 and Stuzo are the people that are helping us with that today. But these are mature technologies that are available for implementation now. They support a frictionless customer payment experience, and they're strategic for us as we build our brands and build our customer relationships. And then you've got cardless platforms like OnRamp, which we're building. I think we're a very emerging early technology. I saw an opportunity to do something different that just simply wasn't being filled by anybody. So look for more on that in the months and years to come as we get our product in the market. But the essence of it is cardless, frictionless, and retailer and merchant friendly. And then the vehicle paying with RFID, that's been a thing for quite some time. It really got some traction in the travel center space like 7 to 10 years ago. A lot of merchants put some major dollars into rolling that infrastructure out. It really never got any adoption or market share. There's been a little of that on the gas forecourt too, but it seems like it's, again, being leapfrogged with more mobile-based technologies. So, it's available today. I think it's not something that I would spend any time or energy into or invest in. So why does it matter? It really is what our customers want. Customers. Most of our customers are not gearheads. They're not geeks. They're not technologists. It's not that they want to pay with an app or have an Amazon Go type experience, because for the fun of it. It's just they want ease. They want to be able to flow through their lives seamlessly. And whether it's conscious or subconscious, we all know this about our customers as retailers, that they gravitate towards those experiences that best synthesize with the way that they move throughout their lives. And so this just makes sense, frictionless, and giving the customers the payment options that they want. There are a few things that retail's doing that I don't think we're doing. With the pandemic, a lot of us rolled out order ahead or curbside. So we touched on this a little bit, especially those of us that already had an app platform in place that we could build on or add this to. And of course, a lot of us have embraced third-party delivery and things like that. But I think in-app payments, one-click payments, auto-renewing subscriptions, buy online, pick up in store, buy now, pay later. When you see those things on the surface, you say, I don't really understand how that could benefit us, and I would agree with you to an extent, but those are things that retail at large have embraced in a big way. I think most retailers have some form or fashion of many of those, And I think we should be creative when we're talking to our technology partners, whether it's an app partner, a payments partner, a point of sale partner, a back office partner, about things like that that are on their roadmap and ways that we can be innovative in terms of delivering a reduced friction, high value experience to the customer. And kind of lastly, this is just an example of what our technology looks like that we're building at OnRamp. So this is the idle screen that the customer would see on the pump. We simply ask them for a 7-digit token input, and with our second version of our technology, the customer will be able to select the pump that they're at with no input or interaction with the forecourt device. So it's just an example of kind of what we're talking about, the future of payments. The future of payments is frictionless, it's cardless, and then it's decentralized. So with that, I'll hand it over to Gray.
Thanks, Jeremy. Good afternoon. So does anybody know any single retailer that's not trying to be more convenient? Anybody have an example? The reason why I'm asking that is convenience is no longer just a distinct segment, okay? Probably the best app out there in retail right now is Home Depot. Home Depot can tell me that there are 25 and number 12 screws of this thread type in this place, in this bin, in this huge store. And by the way, if it isn't there, it'll tell me which the nearest store that's there. And what they did is they took their ERP package and they turned it inside out. What their associates were using, they put a public-facing interface to it. And in my mind, it is the best retailer app out there because they're trying to be more convenient. I live in Austin, Texas. I can pretty much get anything out of a Walmart store within 45 minutes home delivered. Amazon is now moving to half-hour delivery to my store. I live across the street from a 25,000-acre cattle ranch, and they can deliver to my house 3 times a day and make money. Okay? So what's our moat? Our moat is 1-hour delivery. 85% of what we sell is consumed within an hour, and transportation fuels. So if all of these big guys are coming after us and saying, I'm going to take away the 1-hour delivery window, consumption window, and what we've heard is we have demand destruction on internal combustion fuels. In fact, I'm pretty certain that the Fuels Institute estimate of 20% demand destruction between now and 2023 just because of mileage, forget about EVs, is a true thing. So these are things that we need to really consider. I've been in the convenience store industry since 1963. I know I don't look that old. I was 3 when my dad opened up his first store. And we sold 87 stores in 1989. I've watched the industry move up. I actually operated the gasoline and the banking section of the business. And every time somebody predicted our doom, we re-engineered, and we came out stronger on the other side. So this is what we want to kind of talk about. I'm executive director of Connexus. I actually have like 3 jobs. I also consult with NACS on financial services policy and technology policy. So it was my team that wrote the original white paper in 2003 that led to the Durbin Amendments so many years later. That's how long it takes to get things through Washington, D.C. I am also the project manager for TrueAge, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that. But let's go to Connexus. So Connexus is a nonprofit organization that's not affiliated with NACS. We work very closely with NACS, but what we do is technology standards. Every one of your stores is using our standards, whether you know it or not, because all of your vendors have come in and we've decided that's how we're going to interoperate and do data exchange. We also maintain a data and security risk team of really good, well-qualified professionals that translate all this gobbledygook that comes down from PCI and EMV and all that, and we make it consumable so that retailers can understand what they need to do. And we're the only standards body that's ever come out with mobile commerce platform standards. So when we talk about MTPA, P97, all these guys, they're using standards that we created in conjunction with our counterpart in Europe to come up with a global standard on how you pay for stuff from your mobile device. And that's a very key architectural thing to consider because our POSs are so hard to change. Our ERPs are so hard to change. You might be better off moving all your innovation into the cloud and on a mobile device if you want to move quickly. How many people have 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids? How do they pay for stuff? Exactly. They're using Venmo. They're using just about anything but a credit card. Because they don't understand why we use credit cards. They don't even use debit cards anymore. They don't use cash, certainly. Single biggest demographic group after us boomers is that segment. And they're already trained to use their mobile device and whatever's really cool and slick. And the reason why you're not taking Venmo is because the banks bought Venmo because it was too promising. And so they turned Venmo into a platform-to-platform, P2P service. They don't really want businesses taking it because there is $126 billion in interchange to be had by making it go through this plastic card. And oh, by the way, it doesn't really matter if we had to invest $8 billion to accept the new version of that plastic card. And by the way, we know from EMV, we're a member of EMV Co., that in 8 years, you're going to have another $7 billion upgrade, okay? Because there is new stuff coming down the pipe all the time. And so I would submit at this point, we should talk about how do we kill plastic. We should be furtively trying to get rid of plastic. It is bad, not only for the oceans, but also for our bottom line. So we spent a lot of time, by the way, working on vision. So we are a member of the World Wide Web Consortium. We've been there for 22 years. That's where Apple, Google, and Connexus battle out what your next data exchange standards are going to be. Because we realized a long time ago what happens on the web is going to show up in the store. And we wanted to make sure that by the time it hits the store, it's a fair and open standard, and we can participate without paying usurious tariffs. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. The other thing is the world is filled with shiny objects. It's Christmas morning for a 2-year-old. And what we really try to do is we try to winnow out all the stuff that's kind of shiny in the Tech Research Committee and bring down stuff that will give us some basis of return on investment as we go forward, because we can't afford to chase it all. Lastly, we advocate. We don't go up to Congress. NAG does that. I advise them on the tech side of that, but we also go to every tech group that we can to make sure that they understand what we have to go through on our vertical. The 3-year hiatus on EMV, the pushback that we got was because I had a person on my group that spent 2 years educating Visa and MasterCard why you just can't flip a switch and all of our dispensers are upgraded. That's how we got that. So we spend a lot of time in the background making sure that we don't get abused and used. So how many folks are working on all these projects? This is what we call the technology roadmap. This is when marketing people dream at night. This is what they come up with, right? So this is the 2021 roadmap, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on it other than to say, man, there's a lot of crap up there that we got to do. And the reason why it's up there is because our new competitors in the convenience space are doing that, and some of them have a much easier time of doing that. Amazon has got a far easier time knowing about me because every time I'm on Amazon, they're tracking everything I do. And they're putting it into a quant engine. And so my experience on Amazon is vastly different than Jeremy's because he's shopping for something else, and I usually am shopping for something else. But we can't do that in the physical space. So our segmentation of customers right now is Bubba. And if we're really good, it's Bubette, right? That's it. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So anyway, spend some time on this. There's some really good jewels in here. And this is really kind of a consensus view as to when we think things are going to be commercially available for us to deploy. So the big things we're talking about are fundamental technologies drive digital life. 10 years ago, we went to our vendors came to us and said, you really ought to do this. Today, our 20-somethings are coming to us saying, I'm not shopping there. You don't do it the way I do. So the big thing here is in their terms, and in their terms is digital. Increasingly, it's digital. Digital life requires digital versions of real things. So we've heard about the metaverse, right? It's a great marketing term. But basically what's happening is more and more of what we do in the physical space, especially from an informational standpoint, is now being rendered in the digital space. Why? Because I don't have to leave my couch. And I think, we heard earlier, some people want to go and talk to people. But there's lots of people who don't want to go and talk to people. And if I look at my 20-somethings, they can make a purchasing decision within nanoseconds just by doing a couple of key clicks or just using Siri. And digital identity is the foundation of the future because you can't, on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog unless you can prove you're not a dog. That was Nicholas Negroponte. He said that in 1995. And it's a true statement. I can go up on Twitter and make everybody believe that I am a professional bodybuilder and Mr. Universe, and when they come and see me, it's like, well, that's a disappointment. You can be whatever you want on the internet, which is why we have such a nasty society when it comes to debate nowadays, because nobody knows really who you are. So we'll get into that. So the first thing is connectivity. No more listening to modems connect. The fact is that 4.7 billion people as of last year are online on the internet, and 93% of them is through mobile. All right? So all the people coming on board, my kids they have a laptop. They use it for school. Everything else is done on their cell phone. The infrastructure is globally uneven, but that's going to change because there's a couple of fundamental technologies that are coming down the pipe. Geostationary satellites. How many people heard about Elon Musk launching a whole mess of satellites over the Ukraine so the Ukraine still had internet service? Today, he said, I can launch satellites faster than Russians can shoot them down. And he's right, he can. He can launch 2,000 in a week if he wants to. And so the globe's going to be covered by this type of service. And then we have 5G, which right now is not the way it's going to be, but 5G is basically ubiquitous, high-speed, pervasive internet. And it really means that you're going to have connectivity at a very low level, very secure, and you're going to have all kinds of things that are connected. I ordered a dishwasher from Costco. It got delivered, and the first thing it asked me was, do I want to connect it to my Wi-Fi? And I'm like, why do I need to connect my dishwasher to my Wi-Fi? Everything will be. So we're going to live in a world within 10 years of infinite information, speed of digits, regardless of location. You can be in the middle of nowhere. You won't be able to get away from it unless you really want to turn off your cell phone. And that connectivity is going to drive this thing called the Internet and Web of Things. And we've been doing that for years. Your gas pump is an Internet of Things thing. It basically is something that is measuring something. We're capturing that measurement. We're reporting it to a central office. That's the type of thing. But let's take it a little bit further. So the network devices that are going to be out there, and this will get you rethinking your architecture in your stores. You're going to have door open, door close sensors. You're going to have HVAC sensors. You're going to have heat mapping sensors. You're going to have cameras in your ceiling that may be doing self-checkout, but they may also be doing the heat mapping. You're going to have digital shelf edge labels that you can change prices on immediately. All kinds of things that are down there. And every time you add one of these use cases with our current infrastructure, you're going to have to go in and add this little box, an Arduino box, to capture just that segment of the data. And so we're going to build little rack systems in the backs of our stores. Or we're going to chuck the monolithic POS paradigm we have today and start going towards edge computing and hybrid cloud computing. That's going to drive that. So Ng says we're going to see data flows increase 20x by 2030. I totally believe it. I think it's an underestimation. And it's going to be connected to intelligent systems. Systems that are going to make snap decisions and learn from mistakes and make those decisions so that we don't have to, okay? And that's going to better serve the consumer. It's going to expand our decision capability. We're going to go from deep learning, and we're going to move more into machine learning, artificial intelligence applications. By the way, if anybody tries to sell you something with artificial intelligence baked into it, it's probably not true. It's deep learning. There's a nuance there, but it's an advertising term. All right, so because all this data is being collected, we're going to project our online intelligence to the real world, which really kind of enables us then to do hyper-customization, hyper-automation. Hyper-customization is going from Bubba to Bubette to 5 personas to 100,000 personas to 7 billion personas. If you think about it, the differences between everybody on this planet may be nuanced. There's a lot of clones. But the bottom line is our challenge is to treat everybody uniquely by collecting data and responding to what they want and what they need. We all have mobile apps. If everybody is served the same content in the mobile app, you're serving Bubba. So how do you get to the point like Amazon does, where my experience in your app is distinct from somebody else's because I have different wants and needs? So we're going to see this kind of segmentation. Your marketing guys are going to be overworked. But Sheets, it took 3 years for them to go from 2 personas to 3 personas of discussion, right? And so I think they are now up to about 4. You're going to need to figure out more and more of those. Then we have hyperautomation. Best way to put this out is Ken Parent, who's the co-CEO, COO of Pilot, said, we give 1,000 hours per month of customer experience. We need to figure out how we can deliver the same amount of customer experience with 750 hours. And it's because there just aren't any people. Bad news is this: if the United States doesn't solve its immigration problem, we're not going to have anybody to work for us in 200 years. We're very much on the same trajectory as Japan. In 200 years, there will be no Japanese left because they're not replacing their population. Our current birth rate population is 1.6 per couple. That's not replacing your population. So how do we do more with less? All right, so evolution from task automation through the process. The whole idea is start out with robotic process automation, which is really kind of simply, it's an Excel macro. Anytime you see a human being repetitively touching a piece of paper is a good opportunity for RPA. That's how you liberate people to do what's really valuable: talk to other people and customers. Get them out from in the back office. And we're also going to see a mix of physical and digital robots. And those robots are going to look at workflows and start saying, you know what, I can automate that. There's a pattern here. And then there's physical robots. We've all seen the Chowley robot and all these guys that flip burgers and so forth. You're going to see more automation coming into your food service, which is a big, big labor sucker. We're going to constantly collect that data. We're going to improve our robotics capability. I invented a fueling robot in 1998. It cost $80,000 for each hose to automatically fill a vehicle in technology costs. A year ago, I went back to the same scientist I worked with in France, and I said, how much would that cost today, given the advances of stuff? And he said, about $15,000. And that's because they've just gotten better. Robots are more accurate. We're doing microsurgery now remotely. And so that's something that we can look forward to. And then minimize human engagement in repetitive or low decision tasks. That takes the suck out of their job. That makes their job much more interesting if they're doing things that require actual human interaction. So the goal is to improve customer experience with less and use deep learning to do it. So a little bit on hyper-customization if you're an FMCG. Here's the ugly truth. Your FMCGs don't care if a customer buys their product at your store. There's no Santa Claus either. So what the FMCGs are doing is they're getting closer and closer with the customers, and they're establishing brand relationships. They just want the customer to buy the product wherever they want to buy it. It doesn't matter if it's Costco. It doesn't matter if it's 7-Eleven. They just want it to buy it. So we need to inject ourselves in that flow. We need to create value for the FMCG consumer relationship, not only through our location, but also being there when they need us. And I call that on-the-go commerce. A lot of people talk about last mile. Our last mile is what I drive, because there's no way you're going to be able to justify Instacart to do home delivery on a $10 purchase. So the idea is, how do we capture them when they're on the move? So you've got a digital promotion initiative. 8112s is something I want you to write down. The next version of coupons coming out are 8112s. It is a single-use token that an FMCG can give to a consumer, and that consumer is the only one who can use it, and it's completely trackable all the way through through the ecosystem. And it can only be used once, which means there's no more paper, no more fraud, no more shrinkage, and there's no more reason why we don't take it at the convenience store level. $300 billion worth of coupons last year. All of ours were tobacco-based. P&G, we've got that in our center store. How many of you take P&G coupons? Well, they're going to be doing all of their coupons with 8112 replicants next year. Mass marketing challenge. We know our customers better than anybody else. We don't get our customers to sample stuff. Nobody comes to our channel to sample a new Oreo cookie. They go to Walmart. Walmart has already had the product in place for 4 weeks before we even get it, and all the ad dollars were spent. So we need to get in there and be upfront and start helping people to sample, and we need to have a better relationship and represent that back to the FMCGs. Help them reach their customer, and in doing so, we reach ours. So that's where TrueAge is coming in. That's where Connexus APIs are coming in, and real quickly on the Connexus APIs, it's how do I connect my store to the outside world in a real-time basis? so I can project my store in a real-time way. And then lastly, we have DSD. So we all had supply chain issues. That's not going to clear up anytime soon. We've got Robinson-Patman issues. When we couldn't get Red Bull, there were whole warehouses full of Red Bull that we couldn't obtain. All right, so we need to be able to provide visibility back into our supply chain, or we will be the last channel to have supply continuity. It's as simple as that. McKinsey said with Internet Revolution 4.0, over half of the cost savings and benefit exist from the back door back through the distribution channel, not with consumers. Yet we spend all of our time going after the consumer. The other thing is we've got this thing called Project Search Initiative, which is simply this. How do I put my store on the internet so that when people are saying, I need propane, they're not being directed to the suburban propane farm 50 miles away. They're being directed to my Blue Rhino facility that's already sitting in front of my store. Or when I ask for an ATM, it's not sending me to JP Morgan Chase, but saying there's one in this store. So we need to start and better describe ourselves digitally so that people can even find us. During COVID, the #1 search term was, is the store even open? And that was a good search term because there were a lot of stores that weren't even open. All of this is going to be enabled by a decentralized web, and this really starts to strike at the whole heart of payments. The single firm that is most scared about the future, actually two, is Visa and MasterCard. Because their architecture is antithetical to a decentralized anything. They need everything to flow through one apex so they can keep track of it, handle chargebacks, all that sort of stuff, and then charge their interchange fees on that. But what you're going to get, if the promise comes true, if we don't let the big techs dominate it, is you're going to have anonymity with trust, which we don't have today, okay? You're going to have distributed computing that's available on demand and based off of loading. You're going to have trusted transaction ecosystems that are outside of the standard card brand stuff. Think about what fintech innovation is today. Well, I start with an American Express card, and then I do a different thing so that you can take it, right? Fundamentally, if you want to disrupt fintech, you don't start with an American Express card or a Visa card or a MasterCard. You start with somebody's value, okay? And we're going to start seeing cryptocurrency mature. And one of the things to keep track of is what happens with sanctions and Bitcoin. There's a reason why Joe Biden came out on March 9th and said, I am ordering the US government to look at, furtively, a central bank digital currency. Because the feds know that I can move all kinds of dark money through the Bitcoin world. And nobody can track it because it's so anonymous, I can't track it. So I want to talk a little bit about blockchain because everybody equates it to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going to die. I'm famous for this, okay? 3 years, come up and tell me, we'll compare notes. But Bitcoin's going to die because great science idea, terrible societal idea. I mean, if you want to accept Bitcoin, you're basically saying, I'll accept a currency basket of Zimbabwe dollars, Venezuelan pesos, oh yeah, a couple of dollars, some Russian rubles, which that's been doing really well, and the Turkish lira. All right? And nobody knows who sent it and who received it, so nothing can go wrong there. No. What we're going to see is these blockchains are going to permeate every part of our business. Your order to cash cycle on DSD, your order to cash cycle on going back to Cormark. Hell, you'll be able to even order a mango straight from the farm and track it all the way back and have payments made all the way back without having to go in and make those payments. What it is a portable contract. So you think about this. What is a contract? It is, I'm hiring you, I'm buying this from you, I'm buying this house, and I want the title clear. All of these things are going to be revolutionized over the next 10 years because of the blockchain technology, but one of them is not going to be free international currency. So what I think, and this is something that relates to payments, I think you're going to start seeing some of the rational cryptos coming to the marketplace and saying, we have grown up, we have anonymity with the ability to subpoena who sent and who received so we can make sure that we're not funding the black market. And it's stable because it's denominated on a US dollar. That's called stablecoin. These people want it to be accepted at your stores. Visa and MasterCard don't. Neither do the banks, by the way. Because if it becomes centralized currency, you don't need banks anymore. Your currency sits with the US Treasury, and you're just pushing it around using verifiable credentials. It's a big, big thing that's going to get fought all the time. So let's talk a little bit about, press too long, digital identity. Visa said 3 weeks ago at a conference I was at, the future of payments is your identity. So just remember that. What they mean is, I show up, and if you can recognize me, and there's a trusted service provider behind me saying, trust me, he's got the money. It'll be in your account tomorrow. I don't care if it came from this bank or the other bank. I don't care if I had to sell a Rembrandt or borrow against a Rembrandt. I've got the value. This trusted service provider says it's good, and that's how we're going to pay for things. So identity becomes really key. So, in a distributed, verifiable credential realm, and this is where we work with the Department of Homeland Security and their Silicon Valley Innovation Program, they're issuing permanent residency card tokens right now, replacing paper in this exact same way. So it's highly specialized, purposed data minimization. When I give you my driver's license online to buy something, or I fill out all that stuff to deliver something, I'm giving you far more information than you need to have. We pass so much data around, it's ridiculous. And so if I read your driver's license at a POS, I get 33 bits of information. And it could include your blood type, that you're overweight, that your hair is gray, all that sort of stuff. Great demographic information. So it's data minimized. And it's trusted by third parties because the ecosystem has been constructed so that it's made up of trusted third parties. So be people like, in the case of the permanent residency card, it's US Customs and Immigration. They're issuing it to the people. You can trust it because it's digitally signed as well. Here's another interesting thing. It's reducing our identities to a series of claims. My driver's license says I live here, I'm this old, all that. Digital verification or digital verifiers can say I went to this college. I got weed card training. I got alcohol selling training. I am qualified. I took training on food safety. So when I come in to apply for a job at your store, I have a digital resume, and it's all verified. I can't tell you that I went to Oxford on a Rhodes Scholar because I don't have the token that says that, and that token's digitally signed. So we've taken all of this, and we've basically said, if we're going to do 54 million age verifications every day in our channel, why wouldn't we capture that data and pseudonymize it? And then we can risk score it based off of 15, 20, 30 cashiers saying, yep, Gray Taylor is 62. There's no two ways about it. Why can't we do that and then create a digital token that I can use online? Why would we do that? Well, we're selling stuff online. And that means that we're taking the old paper-based verification and moving it online instead of going out and having somebody create a brand new verification for us, like Amex or American Express, or like Visa. So we're taking what we're doing today, and we're just making sure that we monetize it fully. This allows me to sell you beer remotely and have it delivered and age verified when they deliver it. I don't know if you know this, but in every state in the country, you own that beer until the consumer accepts it. Instacart does not. None of these delivery drivers do, for the same reason that the guy selling you a beer in a baseball stadium doesn't have possession of the beer. All right? So you're responsible for the digital drop-off. And if you don't do it right, you're dropping off a couple cases of beer at some 16-year-old's intergalactic kegger. Right? So that's why we did TrueAge. It allows us then to do things online free, because we made it free and all you can eat. We realized those are the two most powerful terms in marketing. And NAC's invested $3 million to develop it, and companies like Molson Coors, Anheuser-Busch, Altria, Reynolds, Juul have put big bucks behind it to make it functional and operational. So back to reality. If we don't get better on age, we're going to see some serious category destruction. Already we can predict that 30% less cigarettes will be sold in 2030 than today. Every day, you have people in every state waking up to figure out how they can take stuff out of convenience stores because of the kids. So we need to take that argument off the table. Category Prohibition, by the way. How many people got cannabis licenses when it went legal in their states? Because it's a joke. In the convenience stores, everybody jokes about it. They saw clerks. You want to buy something underage? Go to a convenience store. It's not true, but that's the public image. And then liability is going to be going up. There is one case that's happening in South Carolina right now where the retailer is in for not only a pound, a ton, because they were part of it, and it's part of the state law. Millions of dollars. And we could prove who actually bought that product, and it wasn't the kid that everybody thinks. So, last thing I wanted to talk to you about before I leave, because I've been talking way too long. Mobile driver's licenses. Every one of your states right now is creating a mobile driver's license that is under the control of one of two companies, Cardless or Idemia. Those companies are set up to charge you to do age verification with mobile driver's licenses. It's very much like the card payment system. If you're in Florida, how do you adjudicate a California driver's license? Well, it's real simple. Same way you do with a credit card issued in California. You go to an intermediary who's going to do that for you. So I've seen the designs on this, and the next generation digital identity for the big tech companies and the payment companies who are in this is we're going to charge interchange on identity. And that's really why we did TrueAge. We get there first, we do it free, we do it better. We not only become an example for the rest of the American economy to adopt these things, but we also keep interchange on that level out of our stores. So that's a real quick survey. I'm sorry it took too long.
You're fine. Thanks, Gray. So we got some time for a few questions and answers. I got a question for you, Gray, though. So traditionally, with things like age verification, like for the last 25 or 30 years, that would be a project that you'd approach your point of sale vendor with. Would that be something that we merchants would go to our POS vendor for now, or is that something maybe we'd go start talking to our app partner about? So is that an integration that we would do at which level?
So the whole TrueAge thing doesn't happen until 4 POS platforms support it, which would be 90% of our industry. Mm-hmm. That's how we get the pseudonymous personas put together. So I don't recommend you approach a POS vendor without a bag of cash, a big one. But what we really do need to do is this. You're losing Juul in your states. If you're not in Arizona or North Carolina, you haven't figured this one out yet because it hasn't happened. But Arizona goes dark on Juul sales if you can't do digital age verification. Sneaks up on you. And so you're going to start losing those things, and it's because we haven't gotten our POS vendors to support TrueAge all the way. They've had the spec for 2 years. Raymond's here. His tenderfoot software took, a day or two to support it. And so this is where we really do need you guys to go to your vendors and your major oil brands, if you're branded, and say, look, guys, we've got to do it. I have a meeting with Chevron this week just on that topic because they were totally floored that Arizona is going dark in July on Juul.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's an important point there, and that is, one, everybody buy your POS from Ray, because he does things quickly. But then I do think that and this, again, it kind of gets tangential to the topic today, but the importance of the platforms that you pick and you allow into your stores from a technology perspective, the traditional point of sale, ERP back office, but then who's your payment partner, who's your app partner, how do you plumb all those things together? As we get into this more fast-moving world of digital transformation, having partners that you have to walk up to with a bag of cash and sweet talk into doing something like age verification that's super important to the longevity of our business and our profitability, that's just not a good situation for us as an industry to be in. So I think that's something, whether you have one store or you have 10,000 stores, those decisions in terms of what platforms you allow in and those conversations you have with those vendor partners and just being really studious in who you decide to get into a relationship with are going to be more critical going into the future than they ever have been before. So what questions do you have?
Other than, does NAG have a drug testing program? Gosh, we did a good job.
Well, we did. We covered all the subject matter.
Our tongues get looser at the cocktail hour too, so
yeah,
if you
right.
want to hit us up with
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.